All right, we are just past 4:30, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. TC, are you here? And I see you're here. Are you good?
I'm good. Taking your
Awesome.
cue, fearless leader.
All right, thank you. All right, well, I want to welcome everyone to our Sustainable Cleveland meeting on curbside recycling. I think many of you have heard about our curbside recycling program, maybe some of the challenges that we've faced over the last year, and we're very excited to be rolling out the new Optin program and the signups for it. So we're here today to tell you a little bit about some updates on the curbside program and our plans for implementation. I'm joined by Terrell Cole, who is our Deputy Chief of Operations here at the City of Cleveland. I'm Kristin Hall. I'm the Director of Sustainability in the city as well. Terrell and I have been working very hard the last few months to try to pull a lot of this together, along with a number of other folks throughout the city. And really, we're trying to get as many folks as we can signed up for our curbside program. So I will go ahead and dive in. Just a quick reminder, this meeting is being recorded. And if you have any questions for Terrell or myself, please feel free to put those in the chat. Also, at the end of this presentation, we are going to, Cathi Lehn from our office is going to give a brief update on our Circular Cleveland initiative as well. So as always, please make sure to put your messages in the chat. Please put them to all panelists if you can, just to make sure that we aren't missing any or having any slip through the cracks. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Terrell, to get started.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so very much, Kristin. Do I have control of the slides, or you got it?
You just say next slide, and I will.
Okay, you got it.
Move on.
So I think it's important for folks to have a little bit of context on the Division of Waste. So we have some basic facts here. So the Division of Waste is responsible for several services, some that you are aware of and others that you may not. So we do the weekly regular waste collection at the curb, and we are moving towards a bi-weekly curbside recycling program that is supported by this Optin process. Also, we have a bulk collection. Currently, that is monthly with 3 items, and we are ultimately going to be moving to bi-weekly. We also have household hazardous waste roundups, paper shredding, and also computer disposal, so that's e-waste. We serve over 150,000 households, and in 2019, 2020 is a little odd year, but 2019, we've had roughly 200,000 tons of waste collected. So on a daily, there are 66 routes and an average of 68 trucks to do that work. We have an operating budget of $31 million, and the division is funded with 2 key sources. The waste collection fee, which you'll see prominently featured on your water bills, and the general fund at $16 million. So it's an important distinction that those 2 sources together provide the operating budget to the Division of Waste. So it is incorrectly referred to as a recycling fee. It is not a recycling fee. It is a waste collection fee, and it supports the entire operation. Next slide, please. So how do we get here where we are with recycling? So there are a lot of different factors at work here. One, the market for materials has changed drastically, as folks may or may not know. China was a major consumer of all of our recycled material, and their standards on what they would accept changed significantly and no longer accepted those materials. And so as such, it has changed the price on those materials. And in the result, our MRFs, our material recovery facilities, became much stricter around contamination. So in the press, it was often quoted that the city of Cleveland had a over 90, I think it was 98% contamination rate. That wasn't accurate. We actually in 2018 had an audit. We actually had the authority to quarterly do audits to really kind of test where our contamination is. And we were around 68%. Still bad, but definitely not at 98%. A goal, Chris, if I'm not mistaken, is around 30 to 35%. Is really what is considered a manageable program. And so it's pretty significant, right? And so the other part of it is that in our history, the city of Cleveland was making revenue on our recyclable materials. And as the markets changed, our last contract was basically at a no cost. So instead of paying us for materials, it didn't cost us anything. But once that contract expired, it turned into a model where then we had to pay someone to take our material. So when we actually went out to bid, we did not receive responses. We went out to bid one more time, and the response was pretty significant. And our estimation is that had we accepted that bid and not changed our model, it would have been approximately a $6 million new cost to the city to offer recycling. And it's important to know that good policy isn't always free, but if you're going to pay $6 million, you need to actually get what you need out of that program. So we actually took a pause. Next slide. And we hired GT Environmental to do a top to bottom assessment of the entire division of waste. So that's solid waste, recycling, bulk pickup, the whole 9 yards, everything about the operation. And they developed a key set of recommendations. So some of the major recommendations you've probably heard about in the newspaper, but that we were going to shift our recycling to a biweekly and opt-in program. And the key decision behind that is, to really get the folks who are committed to recycling to participate in that program. And in the opt-in process, what we would have, which we otherwise wouldn't have, is the names, the addresses, the phone numbers, and the emails of all the folks who say, hey, I want to do recycling. And a key part of that is also signing up for the program is you're accepting a pledge that you will actually participate in these educational opportunities, right? So either text messages or emails and direct mails, all those different things. And when you're looking at budgets, emails and text messages, are free. So we can monitor the program. We can see shifts and changes in the program. If we're seeing certain types of things in the stream that is not needed, we can send those messages as reminders. We're also able to send those text messages and emails for educational opportunities, send multimedia opportunities, as well as your regular direct mailers. So that allows us to also be a little more responsive. The other recommendations is that we shift to our bulk program instead of just once a month to biweekly, and ultimately to an appointment-based program. That's important too, because when you look at what's out there during our bulk weeks, folks are definitely not adhering to the 3 items, and the amount of folks not operating with the rules it far exceeds our ability to have proper enforcement. So you can try and fight upstream, or you can adjust your program to accommodate some of the things that we see. And it's important to note too that a lot of the materials that are put out on the curb don't necessarily fit into the waste truck. It can break or throw off track the blades as it sweeps and contracts. So by moving to an appointment-based program, that allows us to do a couple things. Is we're able to ask information about what's being put out there, so we can have the right equipment. So we invested in these claw trucks that actually grab heavy materials, protect our workers, and we're able to manage that material a little more effectively. Also improve our routing and operational efficiency, and also create drop-off centers. So once we get under contract, one of the things is that we'll, instead of just the curbside service, we recognize that folks who are not in single-family homes or units over 4 units, apartment buildings and the like, still want to recycle. And so we want to have manned centers where you can drop off those materials. And so whether it's bottles, cardboard, so on and so forth, and it being manned, basically, it stops that contamination, right? Someone can actually look at the material and say, hey, this is not recyclable. So we can educate right at that point of disposal, and then also properly dispose of those things, and get it into the recycle pathway. We're going to increase our residential outreach and education because of the opt-in. And then we're not going to expand other areas of these recommendations until we stabilize and perfect each state. So we call those operational gateways. Once we have those performance criteria stabilized and we're measuring and monitoring correctly, then we'll move to the other recommendations in the report. It's important to note because you really, it's a lot of changes that we're talking about. These things are customer facing, but there are in recommendations within the report that are operationally focused, such as improving technology, again, here the routes. And so that takes a little time. You want to make sure those things are settled before you add additional changes to the program. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to kick it back over to Kristin, and she's going to talk about this updated curbside recycling program.
Yeah, thanks, Terrell. Thanks for that background. I think, it's really important for us to understand just the amount of work that goes into keeping our streets free of waste and other materials and debris. So just a quick shout out to everyone at our Division of Waste for all of their hard work on a weekly basis, keeping our streets clean. So as we look to implement our curbside recycling program, I think there's a couple pieces that are worth noting. One is of course, Optin Recruitment. This is the phase that we're in right now. It goes through October. We're really trying to get as many residents as we can signed up, especially because it's going to help us understand, what are going to be those costs that we're going to be looking at once we do bring the program online. We're working through the processing contract and the acceptable materials. So that's another reason that we're trying to get as many folks signed up for the opt-in program as possible so that we can let our potential bidders know just how many folks we're looking to have participate in the program right from the get-go. We'll talk a little bit about our recycling coordinator and the status of that position, and then the circular alternatives. This is, again, where Cathi is going to give an update on our Circular Cleveland initiative. So first and foremost, the Optin process is live. We are very excited that residents can now sign up for this. There are two main ways that you can opt in, either online. You can visit clevelandohio.gov/recycling. Brittany has also dropped a link in the chat for this, or you can call 664-3030 during normal business hours. I would not call right now. You may get a voicemail. The main eligibility criteria for our participants, you must be living in a single or multifamily home up to 4 units that is currently serviced by the Division of Waste. So we have received a number of questions around apartment buildings, kind of individual apartment owners or renters. Again, I will defer to this up to 4 units piece. That's really, I could say, the biggest determining criteria if you're eligible or not. So as Terrell mentioned, if you are living in an apartment and perhaps your building does not offer recycling services, we are hoping that those drop-off locations will be an alternative for you to still provide some recycling options, again, once that's online. One of the big pieces that we're asking our residents to do when they sign up is complete this recycling pledge or commitment. You can kind of see some of the text here. A lot of it is around, again, just making sure our residents are recycling correctly, following our guidelines, and really, I think taking a certain sense of responsibility for what you're putting in that bin. If you put the wrong materials in and it's something like a paint can, there's a good chance it could contaminate your entire street's load of recyclables. So we recognize that many of you are, you want to reduce your waste, you want to see as much recycled as possible, but it is very important for all of our residents to follow those guidelines and only put those materials that are accepted in the bins. Additionally, as part of this pledge, we do include a piece that if you're found to consistently violate some of those recycling guidelines, if you're issued more than 3 tickets for improper set out, that would be a situation where we would likely remove your blue bin because, again, we are trying to maintain a program that has as minimal contamination as possible. I want to be clear here, this does not mean if you put in a yogurt tub that is not accepted that you're going to get a ticket. I don't think that is our intention for this program. It is more if you're putting, say, yard waste, you fill your recycle bin with yard waste, or you fill it with paint cans, and it's serious, significant contamination, those would be situations where we may issue tickets. So one of the big pieces, too, is we're collecting emails and phone numbers for our residents. This is something that's very different than we've done in the past. Terrell mentioned this. Really going to help us in communicating with our residents. I think many of you, I've been with the city for 11 years. I've been living in the city for longer, and the messages have changed so many times around what is recyclable, what's not, how do we put things in the bin properly. By having contact information for all of those participants, it's going to make it much more manageable for us to be able to get the word out if we do run into any of those changes of what is or is not accepted in the bin. So some of our strategies for Optin recruiting, I think many of you have already seen some of our e-newsletters and social media campaigns. So far, they've been pretty effective. We are looking to do some traditional media. We've got a number of different kind of web pieces that have been updated. We'll be doing some robocalls in the next couple of months, especially those targeted at our senior population who may not have regular access to web or internet community meetings and events, including this one, but we will hopefully be hosting a couple more in September and early October, especially as we get into the final pushes of the recruitment period. Partner engagement, this is also pretty big. I can see a number of partners on, a number of partners on the call today. We definitely need your help spreading the word. Brittany will drop into the chat box a promo pack. You can see here we have some sample materials that you can help us get the word out. These are social media posts, things to include in your e-newsletters. If you're a city council person, you can include those in your council newsletters. We're doing our best to get the word out, but really, I find that some of the most effective ways are word of mouth and hearing it from your neighbor. So, if you can, casually check with your neighbor when you're talking with them, see if they've signed up for it, and if not, be sure to pass along the website or the phone number for them to call and sign up. It's not listed here, but we are going to be doing some direct mail pieces in the next few weeks, including a water bill insert, but also a direct mail to all of our 150,000 households within our service area. And then I think those are the main areas. We're very welcome to any other ways of getting the word out, or if there's a community meeting that you would like us to maybe participate in or attend, schedule permitting, we will be happy to participate in that as well. So in terms of our current opt-in status, we are just shy of 5,000 households. We've been live for just over a month, so we're pretty happy with those numbers. As Terrell mentioned, our goal is really recruiting and educating quality recyclers. We don't necessarily want someone to just sign up because they want another trash can. I think that's part of the problem, or how we got into this problem in the first place. And you can see from this map here, we are currently not looking at an even distribution across the city. There are some areas that have seen a lot more interest and participation. It is not to say that perhaps our Eastsiders do not want recycling, but we know that we need to do a better job of communicating with those folks. So again, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any groups or organizations you want us to engage with to help get the word out. We are more than happy to collaborate with you. So as we look to relaunch the program, and Terrell, I will ask you to weigh in if there's anything I'm missing here. There's a number of steps that we have to take. Terrell mentioned the operational pathways to make sure that we're set up for success when we do roll this out. So first and foremost, completing our 90-day opt-in period is currently scheduled to close October 22nd. Once we have all of those folks that have participated, that's going to give us the opportunity to reroute those folks who have signed up into efficient routes that we can manage on a regular basis. Kind of concurrently, we're going to be also collecting the blue bins from those folks who have not opted in. Again, I think we don't want to encourage folks to treat their blue bin as a second garbage can. We want to promote as much recycling as possible, but in order for us to manage this in an effective way, we do have to pull those blue bins. We'll provide more information about that process probably later in October as we get closer to actually executing that. The other big piece is securing our new processing contract. I'm going to get into some details about that in just a moment. And then really once we have the program live, that's our opportunity to communicate with those residents who have signed up. Again, thank you for providing your contact information so that we can let you know when the program's going to go live, when recycling will actually start being collected, what materials need to go in your bin. For the materials that do not go in your bin, are there other alternatives? We work very closely with the County Solid Waste District. They are really the experts in this field, and they have done so much work to identify what you can do with all of those other items that don't go in your bin. So we'll definitely be working with them closely to make sure that we're connecting our residents to those other waste reduction and recycling options as the program comes online. And then, of course, the post-implementation support. I did mention that we're hiring a recycling coordinator. I think one of their big tasks right off the rip is going to be helping to make sure that we are getting the program off the ground, but then really monitoring it, making sure that we're successful in what we're trying to achieve, both in participation but also reduced contamination, and then developing some communication strategies on an ongoing basis to continue recruiting, but also continue that education about what is and is not recyclable. So I mentioned the recycling processing contract. I think one of the big pieces to just highlight before we get into some of the details is just the overall process, where things go. So your recyclables are collected from your home. The city does all of that curbside collection. The materials are taken to our Ridge Road transfer station, which is operated by the city. And then from there, they are moved into large semis where our processor, whoever we may end up contracting with, will then take those materials, process them out. You can see here's a picture of some of the process of pulling materials out. They actually have staff that have to pull out things that are not recyclable. And then materials that are then processed out, they sell at market cost. Right now, we're in a position where the processing costs more than what they are getting for their materials, but we are hopeful that that may shift even through the duration of this contract. So right now our bids are currently being advertised. If you are with one of those recycling processors and interested in bidding, please visit the City of Cleveland's ITB page, Invitation to Bid page, for more information. The bids are due September 10th, and we're anticipating that we will hopefully be able to review those and have a contract in place by the end of October. Some of that, just being transparent, is going to be based on the quality and pricing of the bids that we get. We have an obligation to make sure that we are keeping our residents' best interests in mind and not absorbing costs that we are not able to support in a sustainable way. One of the big pieces that's worth noting is that we're currently bidding it out to accept all materials that are accepted throughout the county. So consistent with what the Solid Waste District is putting out there of the materials that should go in your bin, but we are adding an option for with and without glass. We've heard from a number of different sources that glass has varying levels of value based on how it gets processed out. And if you think about it, it breaks up pretty easily. So you're not getting one full glass bottle, but maybe lots of little shards of glass, making it a little harder to process. So we will see when we get our bids kind of how that looks in terms of cost for with or without glass. I think one of the other pieces before I move on from this slide, and we may cover it in the next one, is there are only 5 items listed here: cans, cartons, glass, paper and boxes, and plastic bottles and jugs. We received a number of questions from participants ahead of time about the different types of materials. I'm not going to go into all of the the details of why one item is more or less recyclable, but I think what's really important to notice here is, again, it's only 5 items. Think about your daily life. Are you using only these 5 items? No, of course not. But these are the only 5 that are accepted in curbside recycling. And we have a lot of folks that want to put way more than just those 5 items in their bin. So it's really important that we streamline, we get it down, we simplify, we get it down to these 5 materials, we do that successfully, and then we can look at how we expand to other commodities and other items that we can recycle. We are not going to recycle our way out of our waste problem. I know many of you have heard us say this before, but this I think helps underline just how much we need to do to reduce waste before it even becomes a recyclable item. Additionally, I mentioned our recycling coordinator. Some of their main functions are going to be, of course, coordinating the outreach and education for this role, supporting the program evaluation and optimization, again, making sure that we are successful in the endeavors of bringing recycling back to Cleveland, and that the program itself is overall sustainable. Additionally, I mentioned, promoting other waste reduction strategies. There's only those 5 items, so there's lots of other things that can be recycled if done properly, and we will share a lot of that information when the new program rolls out. Collaborating with our partners, I think a number of you and folks that we work with have interest in overall waste reduction and recycling, and you're really some of our biggest champions in getting our residents on board and educated with the overall program. So right now we are wrapping up interviews. We hope to make our selection very, very soon and announce that. And we hope to have that recycling coordinator on board before the program starts. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Cathi Lehn, who is going to provide some updates on Circular Cleveland. Cathi, you just let me know when you need me to change the slide for you.
Okay, thank you, Kristin. As Kristin said, I'd just like to give some quick updates on Circular Cleveland. Next slide. So as many of you may already know, we launched Circular Cleveland this past January with our partners Cleveland Neighborhood Progress and Neighborhood Connections. This was through a grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation that was awarded to Cleveland Neighborhood Progress last November. We're very happy that we were one of 6 cities selected to receive this award, and the grant spans over 30 months. And what that includes is a Circular Cleveland roadmap and then implementation of that roadmap, which I'll talk about in a minute. So some of the key features of the award was a focus on equity, community engagement, and of course, linking to the global ideas of the circular economy. And to that point, another partner that we're very happy to be associated with is the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and they are a global think tank on the circular economy. Next slide. Just a quick reminder about what we mean by a circular economy. This is taking us away from the current economy, which can be described as linear and take, make, waste. We have been and are taking resources either from the land or from fossil fuels. We then make products and then we dispose of them. A circular economy works to reduce waste and pollution. It keeps products and materials in use and restores and renews nature. All of this creates local wealth and opportunities. Next slide. We're all actually very familiar with the circular economy, and there's many activities that we already participate in that are part of the circular economy. And I'm sure we can think of many of these. And I always like to think about our grandmothers were practicing the circular economy without calling it the circular economy. And another point I'd like to make that Kristin made earlier is that you see recycling is a part of the circular economy. However, it's not our default. You know, we're not going to get ourselves out of the mess we're in by recycling. Again, it is part of the circular economy, but it should not be the starting point. Next slide. So there's several deliverables within the grant that Cleveland Neighborhood Progress received. And these are developing a roadmap, which that really means just walking us through the steps of how Cleveland can best become part of the circular economy. How do we get there? Also, something that is not practiced widely across the country or across the globe is bringing the community in and getting their input as we're developing and implementing this roadmap towards the circular economy. So community engagement is something that the funders were really interested in. And so that's a main part of this grant. And also support for neighborhood projects through a grant program. Also, something that you're going to see later this year and into 2022 is the development of a composting program at the West Side Market. And also through the city's Department of Economic Development, we'll be looking at incentives for small businesses that want to advance the circular economy. Next slide. So thinking about this roadmap process, we have hired international consultants to help us along this path. Consultants who have worked with other cities within the country and globally to develop a circular economy. And so within that roadmap and thinking about community engagement, we just last week had our first stakeholder engagement. This will be the first of 6 workshops where we want to get all of your opinions about what the circular economy looks like in Cleveland, what the opportunities are, and what the barriers may be. Last week, through an in-person meeting and also virtual, we engaged about 100 different stakeholders that represented public, private, and social sectors. Next slide. I also mentioned community grants that went to residents. These were mostly City of Cleveland residents and a couple from City of East Cleveland. We had 21 grant applications, 14 grants were awarded, totaling $40,771. And again, this was through our partners at Neighborhood Connections. Next slide. Another part of engaging the community is we've just selected 10 Circular Cleveland ambassadors from 10 City of Cleveland neighborhoods. Now, the role of these ambassadors is to serve as liaisons between the leadership team and their neighbors in their communities. So we're very happy to have these 10 residents on board. Next slide. And if you'd like to hear more updates about Circular Cleveland and so much more, I ask you to save the date for the Sustainable Cleveland 2021 Virtual Summit, will be held on October 13th and 14th, and more details will be coming out soon. Next slide. And I thank you for your time, and I'm going to turn it back over to Kristin.
All right, thank you, Cathi. Great update on Circular Cleveland. We've got a lot of really good stuff in the works, and we look forward to sharing more with you as the rest of the year goes on. There has been a question, will we be sharing these slides with participants? Yes, definitely. We will get these slides as well as a copy of the recording of this presentation up on the Sustainable Cleveland blog probably by the end of this week, and we'll send that out to everyone that registered and make a couple announcements via social once it's live. So I'm going to move in. We have received a few questions. Terrell, I'm going to ask you to, you're already there. Awesome. I think one of the big ones, Terrell, that I am realizing that we didn't cover kind of during the presentation is it's October 31st. It's a week after the Optin program has closed. What does that mean for residents that still want to sign up for recycling?
So that is a great question. So we will continue to enroll those folks. And so when we have the next opt-in period, they'll automatically be in there. So just in terms of the process, again, once we have close out the opt-in period this first time, we're going to create those routes. So our trucks will know where to go. We'll be able to look at the efficiencies there within. And then when we do the next opt-in period, we'll take all of those new folks and add them to those routes, maybe create new routes, all that, and then some. So we want to get to a point where we can have just a rolling period, meaning you want the service at any time, we will just add you to routes, but we're not there yet. So we'll have these iterative opt-in periods over the course of the year where we'll create routes, look at routes, and then add folks to routes as we go along. So continue to use the sign up. We're going to modify the form and really call it like a waiting list. And then we will have periodic opt-in sessions in the course of 2022.
And I think I would add to that once we have a contract in place, we are going to get some of those drop-off locations set up. So there will be some interim options for those residents that may be in that sort of waiting period to get their curbside bin. All right, let's see here. Our next question is related to, and I think, Terrell, this is something that maybe hasn't come up in some of our conversations. Is there a risk of contamination of blue bins that have been properly utilized by residents who opt in, but not by neighbors or passersby? I live on a street with decent foot traffic volume where passersby use trash and recycling cans that have been set out, and many contaminate the blue bin. I think I'll take a quick crack at that, and Terrell, please add anything to it. We hope that this will not be a big challenge throughout the whole city. I think if that's something that you, as an individual homeowner or household, are experiencing, to try to maybe work with our recycling coordinator and see if there's ways that we can address some of that. It's unfortunately a little bit out of our control, but maybe there's ways to set out the bin during a certain time so that you hopefully don't invite some of that contamination. Terrell, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add.
Yeah, it's an interesting issue. I don't know if you can, if that's written down someplace, Kristin. I'd like to think about that a little bit longer. But I think the initial is, so the initial thing is that our current ordinances, right, have early set out and late set out, but I don't think we ever talked about optimum set out. And that might be something on the messaging that we need to think about in terms of when people actually put their trash out. So, we deal with lots of different things in that, but, if folks put out 8 in the morning, the chance for contamination, over the overnight or the day before, if you do it 12 or 5 o'clock the day before, you have all that time for potential, neighbor contamination as opposed to putting it out in the morning before you leave for work. Those small modifications might assist in that. And that might just be an education and messaging piece of it. But that's a good question. I never heard that one. So yeah, Kristin, so if that's written down, maybe we can download these in the chat, and we'll talk about that internally as well. Good question.
Great. Our next one, if you are a tenant in a less than 4 family apartment unit, do you sign up for recycling, or does the landlord have to sign up for recycling?
So quick question to the person who asked that. Hopefully this is your circumstance. Are you currently being serviced by us? If the answer is yes, you can opt in. If the answer is no, then there's probably a commercial account, and so you would not be eligible for our service currently.
And I would encourage you, if you are maybe unsure, you can always call 664-3717 and double check with our Division of Waste as well. They can verify that for you. Another question came up, and I'll take this one, Terrell. Very happy to see the city taking this initiative. There are many neighborhood recycling programs popping up. For example, Old Brooklyn Recycles. Does the city plan to work with these programs in alerting citizens about options to recycle items that the city doesn't, i.e. batteries, shredded paper, plastic? Yes, definitely. I think I had mentioned this under some of the responsibilities of our recycling coordinator. Once both them and our recycling program get established, I think they're going to be really working to emphasize that waste reduction piece. You know, overall, I don't think we're trying to put more out on the curb, but I think we're trying to bring less into our homes in the first place, so that we're ultimately generating less, and then ultimately disposing of less as well, or disposing of those things properly. All right, let's see here. When is the next opt-in period? Will all who don't sign up have their blue bins removed? If you sign up later, you'll get a new blue bin then. So I think, Terrell, you answered some of these already. It's not that the opt-in sign-up is going to close necessarily. It will just shift to more of a waiting list. And I would expect that we would probably roll that out in the next round of opt-in participants in early 2021. Yes, all blue bins will be removed if you have not opted in. So please, I think that's an important piece to share with your friends, family, and neighbors, that their blue bin will be removed if they do not sign up by October 22nd. If you do sign up later, yes, you will get a new blue bin issued to you if you've signed up after that phase.
Just a little bit of context. Just want to say that in the spirit of recycling, when we pull back those bins and for new signups, we will probably most likely redistribute those that we've collected that are in good condition, right? It would not necessarily be a brand new bin. So I think it's an important distinction that we're not going to get rid of those blue bins. We're going to hold on to a portion of them to help supply the program.
Let's see. I'm going to throw this one to you, Terrell, and if you need me to take it, let me know. Are there any concerns that there won't be any bidders again, or the cost to recycle would be inhibitive to the city?
So I think there's always a concern, but the issue is that the market is constantly changing. So we know that there is a demand for these materials, and the biggest issue why there was not bidders in the last was around our contamination. So we believe that the opt-in program is a good approach for us, and we will be, of course, waited with bated breath for those responses. Let's see, and then it says, is there cost, or that the cost would be prohibitive to the city? So two things. One, that the cost can be high, but the opt-in also lets us know what the cost would be. We wouldn't be surprised by tonnages and contamination. So you don't want to pay for something and not get the results. So the opt-in and the education and all the things that we're doing, in a sense, protects us, and then also getting those numbers down makes whatever new cost a little more easy to adjust from a budget perspective. So we feel pretty good about where we're headed. Yeah, I mean, until we have those costs in hand, that's a little question mark, but we feel pretty good about the package we've put out.
Yeah, we worked closely with the County Solid Waste District and actually a few other cities nationally to develop some specs that leave flexibility kind of on both ends. We tried to make as favorable a contract both for potential bidders, but also for the city that leaves some flexibility to grow as we hopefully continue to grow the program as well. There was a question, do you plan to continue collecting recycled materials on the same day as regular garbage pickup? I would say, and Terrell, please chime in, that is our intention. We would really prefer not to change anyone's collection day if we can. I think some of it will be driven by the route optimization once we start launching that, but our goal is to keep everyone on the same day that they're currently being serviced.
Yep, Kristin, you're 100% correct. That is the intent.
Okay. There was a question, are schools and churches eligible for any of the programs?
No, this is a residential program. Each of those entities are also, they're not serviced by us currently. Again, this is a residential program. And for schools, they currently manage their own contracts. That's not to say that's something that we won't look at in the future through partnership, but that is not the scope of what we are doing currently.
All right, let's see here. I feel like we have covered a number of the questions. There was a question about how many folks are attending this meeting. We have about 60 I think we had maybe 90 or so that registered, and we've got about 60 that have participated. And we hope to have additional meetings throughout the rest of our recruitment period through October. All right, let's see, any other questions? Since the cans have individual ID numbers on them, has there ever been talk about charging people for how often they put out either cart? Wouldn't that push people to be focused on minimizing their waste at the beginning of the cycle?
Yeah, so when you design programs, that's absolutely a consideration. That is there's a lot that goes in to try and actually make that actually happen. And that's a pay as you throw concept. And there's equipment and lots of back end processes that you need to do in order to do that. And that can be something that we look at in the future as we try and deal and address with how to do reduction. So all things are on the table as we talk about the future, right?
Here's one that I think we also haven't yet covered, Terrell, is how can we facilitate opting out?
Well, everyone is opted out because you have to opt in.
And I think some of that will be, we will have a mechanism in place once the program goes live for residents that do wish to opt out, and that will likely be overseen by our recycling coordinator.
Yeah. Oh, so the question was, after you opted in and you change your mind, was that the intent of the question?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that would be a call to our division of waste, right? After opting in, and then we would just remove that address from the routes, and we would pull the can.
I received a question, is there a plan to educate about the program when the bins are removed from households that do not sign up, EX leaving a flyer? And Terrell, please jump in. I don't think we're going to necessarily have the capacity to leave a flyer at each household that we remove a bin from, but I know as we head into that process of removing bins, we're going to do some heavy communication again across the whole city to let folks know that those bins are going to be removed, and ideally something even on the street if we can. All right. I think we've covered most of the questions. We'll do our best to provide some summary answers to these questions on the Sustainable Cleveland blog, like I said, by the end of the week, which will also include a copy of the slide deck and a recording of today's presentation. I want to thank Terrell, Cole, and Cathi Lehn for sharing the mic with me and just helping spread the word about our recycling program. We know many of you, for many of you, this has been a long time coming, and we're excited to finally be bringing it back in the right way. So looking forward to hopefully seeing some more signups. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at sustainability@clevelandohio.gov, and we'll make sure that those get funneled to the right folks. I'll put that in the chat as well. So I want to thank you all again for taking the time to meet with us or to listen to us, and look forward to having more conversations as we roll out the program. So have a good evening, everyone, and we'll be in touch soon.